All right, you want to get to some picks and previews here?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we got some good games. It feels like every weekend we get to say that we've actually got like pretty good games to talk about. So this will be exciting. I mean, probably biggest game nationally is Georgia at Texas. We're talking about number 5 taking on number 1 Texas, 3.5-point favorite in that one, over under 55.5. Georgia, I'll start by saying this. Georgia, I think, has looked very different than what I thought they were going to look like. Offensively, have really struggled to find like super game-changing guys. And they're a little bit banged up at this point. Now they're taking on a Texas team that I think offensively we have no questions. My only question about them is, could they be similar to my Ohio State Buckeyes, where the number 1 defensive ranking was because they played a bunch of offenses that aren't very good? Like that's the only thing where I would say there's a question. But here we are with number 5 taking on number 1. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah. So first, I'm totally with you on like the schedule. And this is why people added teams like Texas and OU to the SEC and Oregon and USC and these types of teams to the Big Ten. We get games like these and they're league games. We didn't have to schedule this 10 years ago and hope that it comes out and they're both in the top 5. So that part is great. It's our 3rd top 5 game of the season so far. We're only in week 8. But I am also concerned about Georgia. And I just think they're not as sound on both sides of the ball as we're used to seeing. They're not as reliable offensively that we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing Georgia teams that could just always run the ball. And right now, they've not had a single 100-yard rusher in any game. And that includes their game against Mississippi State last week, where that's the worst rush defense in the entire SEC. And that game was closer than it should have been. Like, it feels like they've had a lot of that. I still think coming out of that game against Alabama, another top 5 game, felt better about Georgia than I did Alabama because of the way they came back, because of what we saw from Carson Beck. So I'm not worried if they fall behind in this game. I don't know that they have the weapons like Texas does. And they don't have the Brock Bowers. They don't have Lad McConkey to just help them get out of something, or when they need a massive play, just find those guys. Right. Defensively, we saw Jalen Milroe and what Alabama did in the first half against that defense, where, again, they adapted, they figured things out. Kirby Smart is a great defensive mind, but they were scoring touchdowns on basically every possession.
Yep.
Texas could do that, right? Quinn Ewers, super experienced, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's a little rusty at the beginning of last week's game, but he's still, when he's playing well, it's a Heisman caliber quarterback. They can run the ball, even though they've had injuries to that position in the preseason. They've got guys he can throw to. They've got a defense that I actually would like to learn more about. This is the one thing, Joshua, I'd be curious your thoughts on this. So Texas's defense statistically is one of the best in the country. Yeah. It looks great. When we've seen them, they're blowing people out. They're holding these teams to basically nothing. But it sounds better than it actually is, because they've gone up against Michigan and Oklahoma, which sound like big wins, but those are anemic offenses.
Yes,
bad offenses. They cannot move the ball. So I wonder if we don't actually know how good Texas defense is.
That's where I'm at with this Texas team. Is my biggest question about them. I truly cannot discern how good or bad their defense is because of the competition. And we've been fooled by teams who have stifled really bad offenses. And then they get up against a team that even just has like a higher quality of athlete, not even necessarily like a great offense. And they start to look different. The reality is, I think this year has really come down to like, who do I trust more, or what do I trust more kind of exercise. And I think, which is crazy to say because Kirby's got a couple of trophies there, I think I trust Texas a little bit more at this point. And so I'm going to take them to cover in this game.
I will as well. I kind of feel like Texas is what Georgia usually is, which is also weird to say. But I trust that offense. And we say this all the time, but it's worth repeating because it's so hard to have quarterback depth with quality these days. But nobody's got a better quarterback room and quarterback situation than Texas, regardless of what happens. If Quinn Ewers gets banged up again, whatever it is, you've got now Arch with a couple starts under his belt as well. So I will also take Texas.